These are the three topics that I've just given examples of and that we're going to talk about now. Preparing for an environment of AI and automation. How business models and strategies must change to create value in new ways. And workers and the role of people. Let's start with the first one, preparing for an environment of AI and automation. How AI is like iron. It's like iron because they are both general purpose technologies. A general purpose technology is something that can be applied very broadly and that changes the world in a significant way. To say that AI is a general purpose technology is saying something because there have only been 25 or 30 of them in the history of humanity. Things like printing, smelting ore, the factory system, electricity, the internet. AI is going to be on that list. In fact, you know, OpenAI, this thing called ChatGPT and now GPT-4, they say that GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. I think it's no coincidence that it also stands for general purpose technology. I think they want to emphasize the historic importance of what they've created. The pace of change is what we have to deal with that becomes so difficult. When we were becoming human beings 200,000 years ago, technology consisted of turning a rock into a cutting tool. And there really was technology for doing it. And there were advances in technology. People figured out how to do it better. These advances in technology took place once every few thousand years. That's the pace of change that we are built to deal with, unfortunately, right? Because what we've become used to now is Moore's Law, the thing that says computing power per dollar doubles about once every 2 years. Well, that is an incredibly fast pace of change. If you double something 20 times, you increase it by a factor of 1,000,000, okay? So computing power per dollar would increase 20 times, would double 20 times, increase by a factor of 1,000,000 in 40 years. And that works out about right because these devices that we all carry around, 40 years ago, I am told by people who are in the industry, would have been the size of your dining room and would have cost $1 billion. So reduce the cost by a factor of 1,000,000, it's $1,000, which is more or less what these things cost now. Okay, that was 40 years, and it changed the world. AI currently is doubling its capabilities about once every 3 months, okay? So let's think about that. If we can double the capabilities once every 3 months, that's 4 times a year. 4 doublings in a year, that means in 5 years, we do 20 doublings. 5 years, a factor of 1,000,000. We cannot imagine what a factor of 1,000,000 really means. I've been trying to figure out some way to express what that actually is. Let's think about an orange. I happened to be in Florida when I was first thinking about this, okay? So it's an orange. An orange is a few inches high. Increase it by a factor of 100, okay? It's about as tall as one of those palm trees. But increase the size of the orange by 1,000,000, and what we get is 10 Mount Everests on top of each other. We can't conceive of this, and yet this is what we have to be preparing for now. Because it could be that in only 5 years, AI will be 1,000,000 times better than it is now. I said the other comparison was 100-fold. That's because jet flying is faster than walking by a factor of 100, and it changed the world. A factor of 1,000,000 is more than we can deal with, but we have to deal with it because it's on the way. Beware of digital delusion. I can cite you many examples of people thinking that computers will never be able to do this or that. I can show you PhDs, really smart people who said, you know, computers will never be able to play chess above a mediocre level. Well, a computer beat the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov, in 1997, and Garry Kasparov has told me that today, the chess software that you get for free on your phone is more powerful than the computer that defeated him in 1997. People said that computers could never translate languages decently. Well, again, your phone has free software on it that translates 130 languages from one to another and does so very well, and it's getting better every week. Smart people said, you know what, when it comes to driving, it's just too much. Computers will never be able to do that. And that was in 2006. Well, it's happening now. We should not delude ourselves into thinking that very wild-sounding ideas for what to do with AI are not going to be possible. It's far more likely that they will be possible. Reinvent how you do what you do for an AI world. This is a really important thing. We have to reinvent how we do what we do, because whenever a new general-purpose technology comes along, people always try to figure out how to apply that technology to the way we already do things. So, for example, on the left, that's a factory that was powered by steam engines when electricity came along. And the steam engines ran these huge axles that went above the machines, and then belts went down and operated all of the machines. Well, when electricity arrived, most of the owners just figured out how they could use electricity to run that same system. It was crazy, because in fact, there was a much better way. This system was terrible. If you had to repair one machine, you had to stop all the machines, because they all ran off the same axle. And they couldn't have little ones because little steam engines didn't work. But electric motors did. And eventually they figured out that they could take little electric motors, power each thing individually. It's incredibly more efficient. But it took 10, 15, 20 years for people to figure that out. Much more recently, in the early days of the internet, people just tried to use it for what we already did. And so those screens looked kind of like the table of contents in a book. Reinventing how we do what we do is the really hard part of this. Here's an example. Reinvent how you do what you do for an AI world. The example is Intuit. This is the company that makes TurboTax and QuickBooks, things you're very familiar with. And you're probably thinking, what on earth does this have to do with us? Because what you guys do involves big buildings and big machines, and what they do involves software. It's pure thought. There's nothing physical about it. But in fact, it's a great example for all of us, regardless of industry, because Intuit has done exactly what I'm talking about here. Not once or twice, but many times. It's incredible that this company even exists. It was founded in 1983 when personal computer software was really hot, and it's still alive. None of the other softwares that were created back then are around. They disappeared long ago. VisiCalc, FlexiDraw, you remember any of those? Nobody does. They didn't survive. Only this one survived, and it's still going great. How come? It's because they have disrupted themselves multiple times as the environment changed. So they had to work from selling blister pack discs at Staples to the advent of first the Microsoft Windows, then the internet, then cloud computing, over and over, and now AI. They have disrupted themselves and completely reinvented their business. How do they do it? Well, I'll tell you. AI is new to most of us, and in fact, a lot of companies are scrambling now to get on AI and figure out how to use it in their businesses. The CEO of this company bet the company on AI 5 years ago. Nobody else was thinking about it, okay? So how do you do it? And I mean, I'm saying this is what we all have to do, and it is. But how? Ultimately, it comes down to leadership and culture. I know that CEO who did it 5 years ago. And he says, you know, our top leadership team was not united on this. Some of them thought it's going to be the new way to go, but some of them said, no, this is not going to be the core of what we do. And he had a lot of discussions, but ultimately, he says, he just had to make a decision. And the decision he made was, we are betting the company on AI and data. Not everybody was on board, but that's where he said we're going to go. And as it happens, it has worked out brilliantly for them because they've got 5 years of experience that other companies don't and are just trying to get up to speed on now. And in fact, yesterday morning, they introduced their most important new AI products yet, the biggest ones yet, and it's going great. But the answer isn't easy because ultimately it's leadership and culture. And that's what makes it, in one way, simple, but in another way, difficult.